will not be asked back in. You are being seated on either side. Tonight we are all Republicans. Can we agree to that, please?
Yes.
Amen? Is there anybody that is disagreeing with that? It'd be a good time for you to exit now. Okay. All right. I just want to give you a few rules of the road, and we will go live. Please listen. Please listen. Very important. We will go live on Alpha News at 7:15. The live stream, I believe, is going to be up on Alpha News, so you'll be able to access it, and that is why we're asking for no recording. It's both distracting and it's rude. So you can get all the clips and snips and twiggles and twaggles you want in 7 lifetimes. Those are real words, okay? Just work with me. So there's no additional signs, there's no booing, there's no hissing. We would ask you that you're not clapping for questions because all of that will be picked up on the live stream. We want to make this as clean as possible, so there are, I think there's no less than 10 watch parties going on for this around the state. I also want to ask you for grace. I hope that you'll say a prayer for all of the ladies that are here tonight. The Minnesota Federation has never hosted a debate before. We are trying to go up against the plague of women vultures. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I offended you. Tough shit.
I like this one.
I grew up with boys, and I carried. So just to go. This is how this is going to go tonight. And so we want you to have a great time. We hope that you will cheer everybody on. Royce is our GOP endorsed candidate. So I want to answer just a couple of questions. We're going to go live in 3 minutes. Does the Federation support the endorsed candidate? Of course they do. We're an affiliate. We did this. Royce wanted to do this. And thank you to the Fraser camp. They were very eager to jump in and go. So give both of these camps a round of applause. I said that I would say it, and we are going to begin right at 7:15. There will be a commercial, a little commercial for us, and then we'll start our questions. And guys, do you have water underneath your things? Let's do some housekeeping checks. Okay, I think that we're good. Okay, the last couple of things that I tell you, we had photo ID for everybody. Obviously, you can figure that one out. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out why we're doing that. Our nation, people are crazy out there. I mean, when you're shooting people at rally, that's just freaking stupid. And so we want to make sure that we're doing that. If you need to get up for any reason during this, please get up very quietly and go out. When you come back in, come in very quietly. The front rows, if you didn't pee, you better have good holdings. Okay? You're not in, just so you know. Minnesota flag mugs are available for you for purchase. That's part of our fundraiser. What else do I need to tell you? I think we're going to be good. Oh, last thing, important. Jahner-Byrne, my husband, stand, wave your hand. There you go. That's John. That's my other half. John is going to be monitoring the RNC on Fox News. If you need my AirPods, just tell me and we'll give them to you so you can watch it or silent. If we have breaking news, okay, if Trump comes on, you saw that it was streaming before, you're invited to hang around because we will stream it. We don't want anybody to miss anything. You're going to miss a little something, but we don't want anybody to miss anything. If we are interrupted by something that's very important, this is what's going to happen. The gentlemen know. We're going to say, hey, we are going to wrap it up right now because we're going to go into the RNC. The gentlemen know. They will each have 30 seconds to just say a closing statement, and then we'll leave stage, and Susan will get our feed going. Is everybody crystal clear?
Yep.
If you are not, go out now, and someone will explain it to you, and we'll get from there. We good? Okay. We're going to start literally in 2 minutes. Get a sip of water, and again, please give both of these guys a round of applause. We're glad that they're here. The VIPs were given a chance to give some questions. We'll start with a 2-minute opening, and we did do a coin toss. Can somebody remind me? I am.
You go first.
Okay, all right, the coin toss. So Joe is going to start with his opening statement. Gabrielle is our timer. Here, she'll have her hand up, and we're going to go from there. I'm just going to breathe for a second and hope that I Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Minnesota Federation of Republican Women, Minnesota. We are so glad that you're all here. We would like to welcome everybody that is in the audience, and for those of you that are watching at our watch party at home, we are so glad that you are here. We'll get started in just a moment. I believe that we have a commercial that is teeing us up, and we'll be live in a moment. Please remember, no flash photography. All right, I think we've given our little commercial enough time. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Kelly Jahner-Byrne. I am the president of the Minnesota Federation of Republican Women, and we are so glad that you are part of our debate, our candidate event tonight. It's very interesting that in America there is so much unrest. There are so many things that are happening around our country, and tonight we are sitting in a room full of Republicans. Can we have a nice round of applause for all of that? We have the opportunity here to make a difference, and so we're going to hear from each of our candidates to get their views on the questions that we have asked. Many of the questions that we're going to answer tonight were given by our audience, and some of them have been given by each of the candidates' camps, and so there is no real trick up here. We just want to get your honest feedback of what you think, what you feel, and what your plan is. Because how many of you here tonight believe that we need to have a plan? We need a plan. All right. So I'd like to introduce you to our candidates. This is the GOP endorsed candidate, and that is Royce White. Please give him a nice round of applause. We have our primary challenger for the Republican Party. That's Joe Fraser. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. And so we had a coin toss before, and the coin toss went to Joe. And so Joe is going to get us started with his opening statement. Joe, you have 2 minutes.
Great. Thank you. I'd first like to start off by thanking the Minnesota Federation of Republican Women and Alpha News for putting on this event this evening. It's a great opportunity to show that there is an actual choice when it comes down to deciding who's going to represent the Republican Party this fall going up against Amy Klobuchar. I'd also like to recognize my wife, Rhonda, of almost 28 years. She's been my rock the whole time. A veteran, a combat veteran at that, and someone that I'm very proud to have as my partner in this journey. I wish my daughter Ava were here tonight, but unfortunately she's got to work because that's the American dream. She's a high schooler. She's no longer in high school, and she's got to earn her way. So I'm a veteran, a father, a businessman, and for the last 30 years, I have been working in industry and with the military to make America better, to strive to make the world safer, and to make an opportunity for people at home to be able to have success. In this the fall, we have a choice to be bold, brave, and forward-leaning, to focus on our economy, to focus on our jobs, to focus on our national debt, to focus on our security. These are issues that are important to me. I've had a lifetime of experience focused on those issues, whether it comes from protecting our country. Right now, our border is a crisis because the Democrats refuse to do anything about it. Our economy is a shambles because the Democrats refuse to do anything about it. Our education system is a mess because the Democrats wish to push forward their progressive ideologies and undermine the integrity of our education system and roll back 100 years of women's liberation. The regressive progressives want to undo everything that makes America great. And my job as your senator is to fight for you, to be that candidate, to be the voice for you moving forward, and to unite the party in order to have victory this fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Now we'd like to hear from Royce White. Give us your opening statements.
Good evening. It's a great honor to be here. It's a great honor to be your endorsed Republican candidate for United States Senate. They say politics is decided by the people who show up, and I'm proud of all of you for showing up. We all have to show up now. They give me a lot of home games in the party. I'm back here in St. Paul, was born and raised. The last time we were here, my opponent had pledged that he would support the endorsement process and the endorsed candidate. That didn't happen, so a lot of people said I shouldn't participate in the debate because it undermines the delegates and the endorsement process. But I'm such a competitor, I can't help myself. Save this country, save the republic. That's your duty. That's your purpose. That's your task. The question is how. You got to fight. You have to fight. We have to fight the same way Donald Trump told us to when he almost took a bullet this last weekend. In order to fight, you got to have the truth. You got to have the truth. You got to speak the truth. That's what my campaign's about. It's about speaking the truth. You may not always like it. It may not make you comfortable. And I don't like to be the one to have to tell you. But I'm going to do it nonetheless. My political platform is simple. Border, debt, forever wars. These are things we can change on day one. We can close our border, we can pay back the debt, and we can stop getting involved in forever wars. The three are inextricably linked, and don't let anybody tell you any different. You can't have a country without a border. You can't have a country $36 trillion in debt, but you also can't have a country when you defend everybody else's borders more than you do your own. We have a chance right now in this country to change this country, to save this country. We have to change our party first. If we do that, we stand a chance. I thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. Thank you to both candidates. I'm going to ask our first question, and this is an audience question that came, and we'll start with Joe. You'll have 2 minutes to answer. What specifically will you do to convince Minnesota voters, if you are selected in the primary, to elect you over Amy Klobuchar? What's your plan?
My plan is to hold her accountable for her dismal behavior and performance over the last 18 years. First and foremost, I know I'm not going to have any a staffer shave my legs. I know how to use a salad fork, and I'm not going to throw anything at anybody in order to prove a point. Those are all behaviors of our current senior senator. She has done little to stop what we see going on, whether it's the border issue, whether it's our economy. When she entered office, she was on the platform of championing low cost of education, low cost of health care, low cost of living. $30 trillion later, here we are. Debt is crushing us, is causing the inflationary pressures that have risen health care costs and food costs. These are the things that we can hold her accountable to. And I am doing very well against her in the polls. When I started, I was way back, and now we are closing like a freight train against her. I am leading in every single demographic in the polls against in our candidacy for the party, and I have the opportunity to take it to Amy this fall.
Excellent. Same question to you, Royce. What specifically will you do to convince Minnesota voters to elect you over Amy Klobuchar?
Like I was saying, we have a chance to redefine American politics, but first we have to redefine this party. There are issues, cultural wedge issues, that are constantly talked about in the political industry. We have to go over those cultural wedge issues. We have to talk about root issues, fundamental ideas. Ideas like citizenship. Citizenship. Basic. An idea that we've forgotten, an idea that the Republican Party has abandoned in places like CD5 and CD4, places I grew up, places that when discussed and explained properly, the citizens down there in CD5 and CD4 understand what it means to be a citizen. They understand what it means for a border to be open and for illegal immigrants to take their jobs. They understand what it means to send trillions of dollars to a war a world away that has nothing to do with them. Who's going to be brave enough to go there? Who has a chance to swing those votes? And it's not just for this election, it's for the future of this country. My great mentor and friend, Steve Bannon, who they unjustly threw in prison not a few weeks back, has made it his life mission to carve out a great portion of the Hispanic and black working class. And now that he's in prison, I'm proud to stand here and make great headway in that mission. I get calls up from black citizens all the time. We're voting Trump. The polls show, for the first time in my 33 years of being alive, that black men are voting for a Republican presidential candidate. That's a hallmark of the times. We have to ride that wave. Don't bend. Don't be DEI. Don't play identity politics and give up the principle. Keep the principle and move people toward the principle. That's my philosophy. But the principle will work. Our pitch will work. There are valuable things to American citizenship, the Republican Party, And last but not least, the gospel. And we've forgotten to minister all of those things in the places that we need to.
Thank you. Next question. These are specific questions for each of you. You'll have 2 minutes to answer. This one, I'm going to go to Royce for this one. There's been questions about some of your past run-ins with law enforcement and just some of the things that have happened in your life.
Yeah. How
do you plan to move that forward? Use it to your advantage or not?
Well, I'm not. Be more specific, please. Sorry.
Let's just say you've had some challenges with women.
Be more specific than that.
Okay. We've had some child support issues.
Great. Let's stop right there.
Okay.
Let's not beat around the bush. Okay. Child support. We have an anti-American family court system. And it doesn't behoove me to say that because it could come back on me in those court proceedings. I was court ordered to pay child support at an MBA salary. I paid child support at an MBA salary for 2 years straight, over $100,000 in child support. At the time, I was no longer in the MBA and no longer received that salary. I had no clue that it was my obligation, my responsibility, to go back in and ask the court to modify that support. And I accrued arrears for an MBA salary that I did not make in the first 2 years of that court order. What they won't tell you is that I've overpaid my child support by several $1,000s for 3 consecutive years. And something even more, and I hope I have the time to explain this. In this country, there is a cultural rot and attack against men. Never in my life have I heard of a woman losing her job and her ability to feed her children or house them or have financial stability and have people question whether or not she loves her children. Have any of you? Absolutely not. It's not common. We don't tell people who are poor that because they can't afford economic stipulations that they don't love the people around them or their children. I reject it and I resent it. It's disgusting. And it's why I wouldn't shake this man's hand today. I love all of my children, but I can't afford an MBA salary that I'm not making.
Thank you. This next question is for Joe. This is for you specifically, Joe. There was an endorsement process, and you had said that you would uphold the endorsement. Do you believe in endorsements? Do they matter? Why or why not? And if not, how do you plan to garner trust?
Well, I'd first like to point out that I'm being questioned on following an endorsement process that Mr. White refused to follow 2 years ago. So now I'm being held to a different standard. I do believe in the endorsement process, and I think it's important. It gives the people the opportunity to give their voice and make their voice heard. But it shouldn't supersede the process to ensure that everybody actually has the right to have their voice heard. In our state, we had a small fraction of our party show up to our convention. That doesn't represent the totality of the Republican Party in this state. It's a fraction of it. And when we talk about power of the people, when we talk about the people's voice, a minority shouldn't dictate what the majority of the party does. That is not American Republican democracy. We don't live and die by the minority vote. We live and die by the majority vote. And I stand behind our processes here. I want to ensure that the people of Minnesota have a chance to make their voices heard. Additionally, I didn't just jump right back into this race. I took time to evaluate, because it's such an important decision. You don't just fire off the hip and say, I'm going to go do it. It's one of those things where it takes a chance to reflect, because that's what leadership requires, reflection. You have to make sure that you're making a well-informed decision moving forward. And that's what I did. And during that time frame, we started seeing all of the stuff coming out about Mr. White's past. These are things that combination put it together and said, I need to be somebody to stand in the breach, stand in front, and say there is a choice, there is an option, and the people's voice should be heard.
Thank you. The next question will go to both of you equally. What is the greatest, and we will start with Royce, what is the greatest challenge, in your opinion, in America today, and what do you plan to do to help solve that problem?
The greatest problem with politics in America is lies. Money in politics, people who can be bought and paid for, and social and political capitulation. These are the issues we're facing. These are the root issues. Besides that, I go to a big and more esoteric geopolitical issue like the post-World War II Democrat liberal order. All of you in here fancy yourself conservatives, but your leaders, your thought leaders, are defending the post-World War II democratic liberal order. And you wonder why liberals and Democrats and communists have taken your country. That democrat liberal order was a lie. And it's not advantageous for me to tell you that, but it's true. The idea that we were going to bring democracy all around the world by peace through strength, that we were going to make all of these countries self-determining. Are they self-determining when they need your money and your sons and daughters to uphold their freedom? That's not self-determination, is it? And we have a problem in this country with the military-industrial complex. And I understand that it's not politically expedient for me to call that out, but it's true. That is the third rail of government. And when you see conservatives and liberals come together, it's most often along that issue. They will take your money. They will spend your money. They will send your sons and daughters to die for a war that you know not of. In shadow, in secret, classified. And what do they do at the end? They send you a candidate who spent 26 years in military intelligence. And he comes up here and he tells you there's a boogeyman out there that you should trust him to defend you against. The boogeymen are in the fence. They're in the wire. They're stealing from you. And they tell you you should like it. That's what we need to change. Who will stand up to that?
Thank you. Same question, Joe. What is the greatest challenge, in your opinion, in America today, and what will you do to help solve those problems?
So first and foremost, peace through strength was a Washington position. To have a strong America, and in order to be prepare for war or to live in peace, you have to prepare for war. The biggest problem that faces this country is our debt. The debt is a national security issue. The debt is what makes it unaffordable for people to buy a home. It makes it unaffordable for people to go to the grocery store. It's what has driven the cost of fuel. It is what's put people on the unemployment line. It's what makes it hard for small businesses like my dad's business. For 57 years, we had a small auto parts store in rural California. And we made that business survive until the government crushed it with regulations, crushed it with taxes, crushed it with costs and fees and everything else that put in it. My grandfather started that business after coming home from defeating fascism in World War II. It's gone because the government is greedy. I don't disagree. The government is greedy. But if you're going to take on the government, and if you're going to fight the swamp creatures that know how to hide money and know how to defend their rice bowls, you have to know how they think. I've fought with these bureaucrats. I've fought with them to try to make things much more efficient. And what do I do in private industry? I work to make things more efficient. I work to hold teams accountable for productivity and ensuring that we are being responsible in how we're executing our job. That is the core of what we do. And how you get after the problems in this country, how you get after the debt, is you have to understand how that process works and how the swamp creatures work and how they go after and hide things. You can't just run in there and run around like you're tilting at windmills. You need to know the system. You have to have the capabilities, the understanding of how it works.
Thank you. This one going to Royce. In America, we seem to have lost our way. We seem to have really lost our way against law and order. What do you propose to help us regain and respect for our police, our law enforcement, and for those in authority?
Well, first of all, it's a spiritual and cultural issue, and it has to be attacked at that level. Are there policies that will help us have better communities right here and right now? Are there things we can do today? Of course. But there's nothing that's going to turn it around in an instant. This is a spiritual and cultural war, an asymmetrical spiritual and cultural war. I know it because I come from a black community. I know what the Democrat Party promotes. I know what they push. I know what the music says. I understand it very well. That part I understand intimately. But I go back to my point before. We have to stop lying. When your government steals, everybody's stealing. When your government steals, it unconsciously gives everybody the right to steal. My mission is to bring clarity and transparency back to government for the citizens so that you can have well-being and prosperity. But it starts with the truth. And I tell you now, We can talk about experience and credentials all we want to. It's experience and credentials that got you in the place you are. It was people who have experience and credentials and fancy educations and have fancy vocabularies that sold you out to your enemies. They sold you out to China. They're still selling you out to China. And Russia's your biggest enemy? We're going to go to a forever war with Russia, a nuclear escalation potentially, while we send money to China and we don't know if it's funneling back to Iran? But we want to save Israel? We want to protect Israel? Are we sure? Because when I say it, I mean it. But I don't know what everybody else is really up to. We've been sold a political culture where we take politics with our french fries and we have people that lie to us and make us feel good and we lay our head down at night and we're okay with that. I'm done with that. And that's the only reason I'm up here and that's the only reason I'm running. Every dark secret that this government is hiding from you, I'm going to tell it to you, and I'm going to tell it to you straight.
Thank you, Royce. Now to you, Joe, sorry. How do we gain law and order? America has really seemed to have lost his way, or lost our way. How do we regain respect for our police and those in authority?
I am sitting here and I'm thinking, listening to Royce's response, and I'm thinking of the white headstones of Arlington where my friends are buried. I'm thinking of my biological father, who I don't refer to or talk to about him much, but he was a deputy sheriff. And I think about the ultimate price and sacrifice that they made throughout the course of their careers, some tragically cut short. We're so hostile in this country towards each other because we disagree. We're so angry that we've created such a venomous political society that some kid is more than willing to try to take President Trump's life. It's not the first time that a presidential candidate or a president has been shot at. Hopefully it will be the last. But we need to have conversations. It's important that we engage with community. We build trust through community. And I'll agree on faith. The faith in each other, faith in our communities, and it started in the pew next to you. It started in the synagogue down the street or the temple around the corner. It started in a foundation of common belief. We get back to rebuilding our society when we can stop yelling past each other and talking with each other and listening and sharing ideas. We're not always going to agree. We don't agree on everything. Reagan had his 11th commandment, right? If we can agree on 80% of the things, we can do remarkable things in this country. We can do remarkable things for society. We can do remarkable things for the world. And that's what makes our republic so unique and so powerful and such a threat to totalitarian regimes like Vladimir Putin or what you see out of President Xi in China.
Thank you. Next question for Royce. Anti-Semitism is on the rise in America. What are some solutions that you could offer?
Let's stop being on all sides of the trade. We're on every side of the trade there in Israel. I mean, to me, as a Christian, as a Catholic, I pray to a Jewish carpenter every morning. It blows my mind that we send money to all of Israel's enemies and then we say we want to protect them. It's disgusting. It's a lie. And they think they can lie straight to your face. They think you don't know that sending money to all of their enemies while claiming we want to protect them is a war for money racket. Let's get off every side of the trade. If we want to protect Israel, stop giving money to Iran. Stop giving money to the Qataris. Stop giving money to any of them. And what they won't say, many won't say, is that Donald Trump had a good handle on this, the best handle that we've seen in a long time. A lot of Middle Eastern countries were ready to sign the Abraham Accords, and as soon as Joe Biden got in office, him and the rest of the globalist cabal ripped it up out of spite. And then they'll call me anti-Semitic? I know the history. I know the history of the war that Israel won. And when people say that Israel is not a legitimate nation, I tell them they're a legitimate nation on one basis. My Christian faith, yeah, but let's keep that out of politics because, people don't like that when you talk about Christianity, right? Don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. That's become a cultural norm. Fine. Israel won a war on three sides. The legitimacy of their nation rests upon that. if we're going to protect Israel, if we're going to protect the Jews, number one, stop giving their enemies our money. Number two, stop letting people use the Jewish identity to stifle leaders that would actually protect them.
Thank you. Same question to you, Joe. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. What can you do about it? What are your plans?
Well, I think we need to look at what's going on our college campuses with these pro-Palestinian protesters. They're not really pro-Palestinian. They're pro-terrorist organizations, and they're championing the cause of Hezbollah and Hamas. That's no different than championing the cause of al-Qaeda. You need to address those issues. I'm all for freedom of speech, and having a disagreement on the political philosophies of the government of Israel and the treatment of the Palestinian people is perfectly legitimate. But Palestine has had the opportunity to accept peace with Israel on no fewer than 3 occasions, to accept a 2-state system, and they refuse to do that. Iran is the bad guy in the region, no doubt about it. They are funding the war. Not only are they funding the war against the Israelis, but they're funding the war and the information war against them. They're threatening Americans every day, and they're threatening our economy through the supply chains that run through the sea, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden. We need to address those issues first and foremost. We need to talk about how this is generated over time. My grandfather was living evidence of what happens when you forget to listen to what's going on to the Jewish people. He left Germany in the late 1930s as Hitler's rise was coming into full power. Before they invaded Poland, they escaped. My grandfather, his father, and his mother escaped with their lives. His sister, Marguerite, and her husband, Peter, lived like Anne Frank lived in the attic in some house of some person who believed in their value as a human being. We need to recognize that those stories are real and that anti-Semitic tendencies, whether they're dog whistles to the alt-right or the extremists, those are things that we need to recognize. They have to stop in order to protect the Jewish people and their right to exist.
Thank you. Back to you, Royce. Is Trump a positive or a negative for your campaign? Will you run as a MAGA Republican, or will you distance yourself from Trump fans?
Is that a real question?
That is actually a real question.
Wow.
That was brought in.
That's
yes.
scary. That actually scares
scary.
me a little bit.
But it's a question, so answer it.
I'm ultra MAGA, okay? Ultra MAGA. I'm further right than Trump. I'm proud of it, and I'm going to support him every step of the way. But I need a rebuttal. Can I rebuttal? I got to go back.
Go for it.
Okay.
You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. That question is so obvious. I'll forego that one and answer this one. What do I mean by the Jewish identity being used to stifle America First or American citizenship? What am I talking about? Even to say it is dangerous. The Jewish identity has been used the same way the black identity has. And as a Christian and as a black man, both offend me equally. The black identity in America is used to justify the ever-expansion of the federal government. The Jewish identity is used to justify global government. And the Holocaust was a great tragedy. Slavery was a great tragedy. It's not about tragedy, it's how tragedy is used and how it's wielded against you. You can't even say the word globalism. The Star Tribune, the Red Star, the Communist Star Tribune, made the claim that me saying globalism, the word globalism, in and of itself is a dog whistle to anti-Semitism. This is using the Jewish people to protect a political agenda that's meant to undermine your citizenship. And they think they can scare me off of my square by making that accusation. It's not going to work. It won't work against me. The question is, will it work against you all? Because that's who it's really aimed at. They take one look at me and they know anti-Semitic claims isn't going to shake me one bit. My best friend is Jewish, for God's sakes. It's aimed at you. If we can play on your heartstrings, then we can get you to give us your money. And even more importantly, your freedom and your rights. Because when you go to global governance, I guarantee you, when the pandemics resurge, there will be politicians who argue that you should give your governance and your governance over to a World Health Organization, for example. And that is the game.
Thank you. Same question for you, Joe.
Absolutely. I support President Trump. I endorsed him in February. I'm a big believer in the fact that he's got some great policies. I voted for him multiple times. I served for him, and my retirement certificate is actually signed by Donald J. Trump. I'm proud to have that. I'm proud to know that I'll have the opportunity to serve in the United States Senate advancing his policies and agendas. We were strong in the world under Donald Trump. Our foreign policy was amazing. It was awesome. It put China in the box for the first time. It put Russia on notice. It did let the rest of the world know that the United States is willing to lead. That is our job. If we don't lead, then who? That's the question. Who do we acquiesce leadership on the global stage to if we want to retreat? Who do we stand back and say, all right, it's China's turn, it's Russia's turn, it's Great Britain's turn? I don't want that. That's not the country I grew up in. That's not a strong America. That's not an advocate for American strength. You lead through strength. You lead the world to a better place because we are the standard bearer of democratic rule. That's what makes us great. And I will support President Trump in continuing to advance that philosophy because I know that President Trump is not a man who's willing to take the back seat to any other nation in the world.
Thank you. We're going to shift gears just a little bit and talk about winning because we need to be winning in Minnesota. In order to win statewide, you need to win Anoka County by at least about 10,000 votes and pretty much tie in Hennepin County. Anoka has been okay for Republicans in recent elections, but Republicans have lost Hennepin County by tens of thousands of votes. And that's where Amy Klobuchar has been, a judge. So what's your plan? How do we make up for those twin cities?
I'm going to go door to door in my neighborhood, in my community, both the black community, the Hispanic community. I have rich roots in both here at home. My great-grandmother helped found the Catholic Church, Our Lady of Guadalupe, right there on the west side of St. Paul. 7 generations in the black community there in Rondo. My grandmother's in the crowd today. She looks white, but she's half black. She's my lovely grandmother. We just got to tell them the truth. And the truth that they need, listen, black people, they've been sold this dream that if the federal government expands, that they can be protected from all you racists. That's the narrative. I know something different about the people in this room and the people in this party and the people in this movement. But we can't be afraid to bridge that gap. But we can't go in with lies. These people are not stupid. And I go back again. I can't let this slide. America can lead. But in order to lead, you better make your own stuff. You can't play empire if you don't make any of your own stuff. That's number one. But secondly, you better have your own moral house in order. Who are we to say what the rest of the world should do? We don't even have ourselves under control right now. And there's nothing wrong with prioritizing that before we go back out and play leader. And what people won't tell you is national security has become a racket itself. It's always about the national interest. The military itself is the national interest. How did the Roman Empire fall? The Roman Empire fell when it tried to defend too many outposts. And by the time the hordes had made it to the Roman wall, we didn't have enough there to defend it. We're stretched that far thin right now. And don't let anybody tell you any different or they're lying to you. Black people understand we don't want to send our money to the Ukraine war or any other war we don't have to. It's better spent here.
The question goes to you, Joe. In order to win statewide, you need to win Anoka County by at least 10,000 votes. And in Hennepin County, Anoka, it's been okay for the Republicans in recent elections. But we've lost in Hennepin County. What's your plan?
Well, I live in the suburbs, and we need to win the suburbs. We definitely need to work there. It's the same strategy to point out, and that I've talked about earlier this evening. Amy's percentage points in the polls is below 50%. For somebody seeking an unprecedented fourth term, she should be in the 60s. She's weak. We need to call her out on that. And she's weak because of her policies. She's weak because she abandoned this state. She's weak because she's abandoned not just the inner city, but she's abandoned the Iron Range. You want to talk about building in America? Let's build using minerals that come out of the Iron Range. Let's put those blue-collar Democrats that used to vote for Kennedy, let's put them to work. Let's put them to work voting for the Republican Party and voting for making America industrialized again. This is an opportunity that we have to reinvigorate jobs here in Minnesota and talk to the unions and talk to the miners and talk to the small businesses that have been forgotten by Amy Klobuchar, had been undermined by Tim Walz and the Democratic Party in this state. You know, DFL, don't forget labor. I think they forgot them, right? They moved away from them. They decided that it wasn't worth it. And they made their investment in small pockets because they think that that's what's going to keep them in power. We have the opportunity to beat Amy on the issues where she has been silent and weak. She is the senator of small things. She's not the senator of big problems, and we need senators that go after big problems. And we talk about our budget. We talk about our defense spending. I understand that world, and I fought in that world to scale back expenditures because we spend too poorly. We need to prioritize, and we need to know where to get it. I know where to look. Or do other people know? And will other people give that money back if they find it?
Thank you. This is about balancing budget.
Yeah.
Congress has not balanced the federal budget in a quarter of a century. During that time, our crushing national debt has quadrupled. How high of a priority is balancing the budget every single year, and what are you personally prepared to do to realize this urgent, vital task?
The budget should be balanced, and your senator should filibuster if it isn't. And they always talk about the budget. I mean, it offends me. If I'm going to say the one reason why I'm running for office is because they think you're dumb, and it offends me on your behalf. Seriously. They just lie straight to your face. Like, we're going to deal with the national debt when every couple hundred days they vote to raise the debt ceiling in the interest of some war and some omnibus. They have no plans on stopping the debt because there'll always be a war to fight. There always will be a place where you have to go force democracy on a culture of people who don't look and think like you. They're not going to cap the debt. I would proudly stand up and filibuster that the debt ceiling don't be raised a single penny. That's the echelon of the smash mouth, America First, nationalist, populist movement wing of this party that I come from. That is what me and Steve and Peter Navarro and Donald Trump, who does believe in leading this country and leading the world through this country, but also threatened to pull out of NATO if they didn't pay their fair share. And he was ridiculed for that. And my point to you all is the money that they're spending, they use your emotion to justify. So if I stand up there and filibuster, don't let them tell you he's holding up the people's business. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question for you, Joe. Congress has not balanced the federal budget in a quarter of a century. During that time, our crushing national debt has quadrupled. How high of a priority is it for you to balance the budget every single year? And what would you personally be prepared to do to realize this urgent, vital task?
It's my number one priority. Balancing the budget, getting our debt under control is number one priority because it ties to everything when it comes down to making sure that we have programs that senior citizens rely on, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. There's veterans benefits that are out there. I'm a veteran. It's not a secret, right? I'm a disabled veteran. There are millions of me in this country that have given something to the defense of this nation. We need to protect these items. But we need to go after reckless spending. And I'm going to tell you, first and foremost, right off the top, I'll give you a great example of how we can save $114 million tomorrow. Cut the DEI spending that's in the Department of Defense budget for fiscal year 2025. You didn't know that? It's there, right? Big, bold, $114 million. That's wasteful spending. Going after where we can cut waste and knowing where to look for it, knowing how those rice bowls are filled, and going after the machines that put that in there. That's how you lower the debt. And by the way, it's a federal law to pass the budget on time, and we haven't done that. in years. And every time it does that, it puts the benefits that senior citizens rely on at risk. I'm going to fight to make sure that we legitimize our legal processes to following the appropriations and the budgetary process and making sure that we are not recklessly spending our money. And to give you another example, the Biden budget for 2025 is $7 trillion. It's $2 trillion, and it needs to be because they still think we're in COVID.
Okay, you gentlemen okay if we pick up the pace a little bit and do a little bit of rapid fire? We're getting to the end. Everybody good? Okay. We're going to give you just 1 minute for these. Okay. We're a women's organization, and some people seem to be confused as to what the definition of a woman is.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that neither of you has that as a problem.
I hope not.
Yeah, I think you can define that. So, what are some plans? Give us some things that can be done, because it seems to be that our government wants to unravel every good thing that has been done for, from the DNA women.
Yes.
What is your plan?
More identity politics weaponized against the groups that it says it purports itself to protect. Blacks, women, LGBTQ, Jews. The whole identity politics game says we're going to protect you, but it's really to their detriment. Black people, welfare state, wars of the state will always be given just enough to stay poor forever. Women, women's rights movement, Title IX, all of a sudden now you got to deal with me out on a basketball court, okay? Or in an octagon for that matter. The LGBTQ mental health outcomes are as bad as they've ever been, and I was one of the original mental health advocates in this country. And last but not least, I've already explained how I feel about the relationship with Israel and how the Jews are being used. The spending, $114 million. That's great. Let's get rid of the FBI. How much money are they draining? How radical are we going to be? And I have to say this about this DEI question. I've taken so much flack from the LGBTQ community, I can't even explain it. But my opponent has he, him pronouns in his bio. That is DEI. To this day, he has those pronouns in his bio.
Time. Okay, same question to you, Joe.
Well, thanks for checking out my LinkedIn profile today, because I know you did it. Because I recognize that gender identity dysmorphia is a mental illness, and we need to be compassionate for people who suffer from it. That doesn't mean that we need to force that on society and indoctrinate our children into it. My daughter played hockey. I do not want a male in my daughter's locker room, and I will fight to ensure that no woman has a man in their locker room. That is your space. You worked hard for it. You fought for it, and you deserve to have that recognition. I recognize the value of science. I recognize the importance of mental health. I recognize that these are issues that we need to address, but they shouldn't be a progressive left acceptance agenda that forces the ideology on us. It's important that we defend the rights for women. It's important that my wife, veteran, hardworking, proud woman, and I am extremely proud of her, and a great example to our daughter, have the opportunity to be seen as an equal as we move forward.
Rebuttal.
Go for it. You're each going to get 30 seconds, so go.
Peace through strength. Your national mortal enemies have banned queer theory on their television and, even more importantly, in their military. We're going to have a United States Senator that serves with peace through strength, that capitulates to the social pressure and norms of queer theory on their own social media page. They'd have to shoot me in the head before I put he, him pronouns on my LinkedIn bio.
Time. Another comment?
Well, I just say that as a conservative man who voted for Donald Trump, I know what my Republican values are. I know the value of human beings, and I do not discard people just because they're different. Unlike Mr. White, who voted for Joe Biden and supported Robert F. Kennedy, and who said F Trump no fewer than just a few months ago. Now this is the man who's talking to us about truth. I am who I am, and I do not hide from it. I stand in front of you as the same person I've been my entire life. You want to talk about transparency? There it is.
Time. Okay, we're going to give each of the gentlemen
Rebuttal.
90 seconds. You can rebut all you want, but I got the mic.
Okay, go
so
ahead.
here's the scoop, Royce.
I like you. You're running for office next if I got anything to do with it.
We're going to run a tight
Go
ship
ahead.
here.
Go
We're going to
ahead.
shut her down. Okay. And you all agreed, and I was told you're both gentlemen.
Go ahead. Go
All
ahead.
right. So we're going to give you a minute to wrap up shop.
Okay.
And we're going to let Joe go first. You got the coin flip, and Royce, you will close out. So, Joe, if you'd please give us 1 minute, your closing statement, please.
I think it's clear that we have two very different candidates in front of you tonight. One that's formed through years of experience and understanding how the world works, and one that will champion to be your champion and to be your voice. I don't just roll over, I don't just quit, and I don't just take down something off of my website that's going to make people unhappy. If I did that, what kind of person would I be? I wouldn't be truthful, I wouldn't be honest, and I wouldn't be forthright. And that's what you need as a senator. You don't need somebody who's just going to placate you with go-to speeches and go-to feeling talk to pull on your heartstrings. You need to have somebody who's going to be the fighter on the Senate floor, who's going to be the fighter in the Senate chamber, who's going to pull people aside. I'm not just going to be a rubber stamp like Amy Klobuchar, and I can beat her this fall. I appeal to not just the Republican Party, but across lines. And that's where we need to win, and that's how you can beat Amy Klobuchar this fall.
Thank you. Royce, 1 minute.
Final thing I'll say is I appreciate you all for being here today. I appreciate your support. I look forward to representing you in the United States Senate, and I will fight. I lock myself in an octagon with another man and to the point of unconsciousness. That's what MMA is about. I'm a pro fighter, if some of you don't know. I love a good fight. I love a bad fight. I got to be honest. I love a bad fight. We can redefine this party, but we have to be honest. One of the problems with this party is we have too many litmus tests. We hold the principle. We bring people towards the principle. We want sinners to come into the church. We want Democrats to vote Republican. I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I wrote in Tulsi Gabbard, and I wouldn't have mind seeing her get the VP pick myself. I like J.D. Vance, though. I never said F Trump a couple months ago. That's just a lie. I've been more supportive of Donald Trump than anybody else. In fact, I've taken arrows and slings from my own family, and I'm proud to do it. And I do it time and time again because it's not about him, it's about the ideas. And I understand those ideas. And those ideas are the ones we're going to take into Minneapolis and St. Paul to win this election and flip this state red for another 50 years.
I want to say a big thank you to both of our candidates, and I expect all of you will give them a nice round of applause. Joe Fraser, Royce White, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I'd like to just give a little plug for the Minnesota Federation of Republican Women. We exist to build leaders, to energize communities, to keep America strong, and to get conservatives elected. Thank you, everyone. God bless America, and please vote.
Amen.